Do you think that your relationship to writers has changed from when you were acting versus directing? I guess as an actor, you didn't really I don't know. You deal directly with the writers sometimes, but as a director, there's much more. But it's also television, which is on, like you're the visiting director who wants to hear too much, but you want to hear some. I don't know. It's like, what's the relationship with writers?
Well, as an actress, you're really only thinking about your character. And as a director, and this is now more that I'm involved in the writing process a little more as a producer. Obviously, I have more to say. But even coming in as a guest director, I still think it's my job to point out if I feel there are holes there, you know, and that would be different than, even though I know some actors think that's their job too. But as a director, if I know that, hey, there seems to be something missing here, this and this. Also, I pitch things if I have a vision for how I could for directing and how I could make this a little better. I give, I'll give pitches. I'm like, if we just made this little tweak, or I need a little bit of dialogue here so I can make this camera move more. And it usually opens it up, bigger visually. It's more of a collaborative, process now. And then of course, then producing on the Gilded Age, um, I have a lot to do with that, and talking about the scenes and what should happen, and oh, this isn't connecting here. And even, Julian, in his writing, he writes really much like a play, and so the visual aspect of it is really all left to you. So when you see my episodes, it just starts there in the house talking. Any openings and stuff are things that I come up with myself, so that you have a great opening and end. And then I'll talk to Julian about it and let him know, does this feel good to you? And then he writes it into the script so that it's in there so everyone knows what we're doing. So it's definitely a closer relationship now.
The early reviews that I've read have been like spectacular for it. So that's got to feel kind of gratifying. Anyway.
I'm excited about uh yeah, for people to see it. It's a beautiful show. It's really the scope of it is huge. The costumes, we couldn't have had. I think we may have every Broadway star in New York is in it. So the caliber of actors in it, they could say anything and it would be brilliant. So we just, we have that going for us. So I can't wait to see how people feel. I think that Downton's fans will be happy, but I think it's not so much the same. It's different enough, and it's American, and it has more, has more of a drive to it and a muscular feeling to it, that new fans who like that genre will like it too.
Yeah. Now you're listed as I think Michael Engler, was that his name, the co-director? Yeah. So did you guys co-direct all the episodes or some?
He directed 5, and I did. So it's basically like 9.5 episodes, because he did the pilot. The first episode is an hour and a half, and then what we did do is we directed the whole season. We cross-boarded the whole season at the same time. So I did episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6, and he did the front and the back.
Oh, okay. So you didn't actually co-direct a single episode together.
We have our own episodes, and we were really separate entities. We have our own DP, and so there might be a time he shoots a week. So it was just an odd thing. So I feel like normally you would get a pilot, and then I would watch the pilot and see what his ideas are, and then I go from there. That's why I became such a bigger part of it and became one of the executive producers, because we really directed the whole thing at the same time, which means that I was very much a part of creating the look of the show. I think he started the first 2 weeks of shooting. Then I came in and I shot a week or two. And then one day he might shoot in the beginning of the day. I'd come in, take over the crew, and do this part. All of our scenes that we shot in Newport, because we could only go there one time, we for all the episodes we shot all the Newport stuff there. And so it was just a different. So none of the episodes were actually done until the very end, because everything, so it was just a different way of shooting, and it worked very well for us. I could see what he was doing and go, oh, I like the way he did that. And then he'd look at me and go, ooh, that was cool. I didn't think, okay, I'll steal that. So it was a great experience, and I feel really a part of the show because of that.
Yeah, and it sounds like that type of crossboarding. It's super efficient. Especially when you have a show of such scale like this, where it's like, you're not over the course of 10 episodes, you're not returning to Newport, for episode 1, then episode, move the whole crew and everything. So it's super efficient. And working with Julian Fellows, is just a spectacular writer. Had to be a great experience. But you would get I kind of want to understand sort of your approach to storytelling. That it kind of, you would get a script. Let's talk like process. As an actor, you get a script. You start reading it. Let's assume you read it just for the story first. But what's your entry point into the script as an actor versus your entry point into the script as a director? Is it different?
So hard, because I think I do it very much still from an actor's point of view. It's kind of very instinctual for me. Um, so, obviously as an actor, you're mostly just thinking about your character, right? It's one of those, when I first get a script, and I'm really into my scriptation now. I download it into my scriptation, and I'll read it. That first time I read it, I will get initial ideas. Like there are certain scenes that'll like visually come to me. Like I can, I see it. So I write those notes down immediately, just so, because you'll lose them, right? Then I start, then I go through and I read a few more times just so I really know it. And then I have my scene, and I will start with my blocking first, because I love blocking. And now, because I'm also coming from the actor world, when I've read it as an actor would, and I've start dreaming about where this person would go, and what they're feeling. Like I'm going very much by what I think that character would feel, because now I know them.
Because I mean, just as a sidebar, because what I was thinking was that the muscle that you use, like as a writer, I read a script differently than, well, I was gonna say, like when I've directed, I read the script. It's a little more technical, but then again, I'm usually directing something that I've written, so. So it's like it's like kind of baked into the DNA of the script that I kind of know what's there. So I guess it's not really a fair comparison. I don't have a somebody handed me a script that they wrote. Now I have to direct it, and so I haven't had that particular experience.
I think I go about things much different, and then I kind of go straight to work on it. I figure out blocking, and once I have blocking, then I know where my masters need to be, and then start knowing the coverage I need.
Is it overly ambitious for me to think that as a director that you would look at the script and say, how does my blocking that I'm thinking of, does it support the story or not support the story? It was like my big thing, like when I would do my tone meetings, with directors, we would sit, and for those who don't know, like a tone meeting is it's kind of almost the last thing you do before you start shooting an episode. So it's usually the writer and the showrunner and the director and maybe the line producer all sit in a room together and go through the script scene by scene, and the director is kind of downloading from the showrunner and from the writer, here's what's important to me about this scene. Here's the tone of this scene, right? So my big expression would always be, here's the story of this scene, right? And then, it's like, whatever. Jeff sits down at, his desk and drinks from a coffee cup without looking, and suddenly notices it's got a logo on it, and he reads the logo, right? And the logo is somehow important to the storytelling, right? So in a tone meeting, I would say, well, the story of the scene is the reveal of the logo, right? So then now we get to the floor, and they're shooting the scene, and it might be a wide, and it's this, and it's coming, somebody's doing this, and then they're like, okay, let's move on. And I'm going, whoa, you didn't get a close up of the cup where we can see, and we didn't get enough. We weren't inside enough on the face to say there's something about the logo, right? So so I would always, to the point of annoyance, I'm sure, tell directors, I go, you didn't tell the story. You didn't tell the story of the scene, right?
Instinctive, because of course, that's where I start from, but. And which is why it's hard for me to voice how I do it, but I do know it does all start from what is the story, right? And making sure, but that becomes part of my note taking, like, what are the beats? And those are my specialty shots. What are our special shots that are going to tell us, tell this story? But, blocking for me is sort of natural, because as an actor, I can usually block people very easily, because I go, okay, well, you need to get here, like you said, for the story. The story says you have to get here, you have to get here, you have to get here. So in this dialogue, what are the things that would make you get up to go there? And why would you hear it? Because I don't like people sitting all the time. So even though it says you're sitting here, well, maybe we can start here. How do we get us moving in this scene? But it all needs to make sense so that we tell the story. Usually those are my specialty shots. But yeah, everything starts with story.
Right.
But
I've also,
I have a very, I think probably a different way of getting into things. But I always, because I go over it and over it and over it, I always get those pieces I always tell people, pieces tell the story.
Hi, I'm Jeff Schechter, and this is the WritersRoom Pros Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, you ring that bell so you don't miss any conversations we have with writers, producers, directors, composers, actors, everybody involved in the business of storytelling. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram at WritersRoom Pro. Right. Cool. What do you find writers do, not every writer, obviously, but like you read a script, and as a director, what do you find that writers do too much of in scripts? And then we'll go the other way. What do they not do enough of to help you out? So what are they doing too much, besides like they're directing it, like they're calling out every shot, which I know that's everybody hates that, right? But besides that, like what are they doing too little of, and what are they doing too much of? Like, I'm trying to find what's that sweet spot as a director you look for in a script.
Like they're overriding. Nobody talks that, so that you don't have any nuance where we can play with, like, you don't have to say everything, because people in life don't say everything. And I think that scripts are a little more rich when you have to read between the lines and have a little more, nuance. And I can read it from what the actor's doing in their eyes, and so the stuff that's over, and not being, and writing scenes that there's a lot of times when I go, like you were saying, does this scene move the story along? If it doesn't, why is this scene? I mean, there are scenes I go, this is like, I can tell a scene, I'm like, this is getting cut. I don't care about this scene. It's not moving the story along. There's no payoff for it. What is this but a waste of my time? And 99% of the time, I'm absolutely right, and it's being cut. And now we've wasted
Mhm.
money and time. So I think, and then writers not being willing to really see that and be willing to cut something that doesn't need to be there.
Well, that's the kill your darlings principle, right? You have to not be afraid to kill your darlings.
I mean, there are many times there are beautiful shots where I just, after editing, I'm like, I love that shot, but
Mhm.
it's not help it like it's got to go. We just don't have the time for it, and it's going to make everything tighter. So, I'd be like, okay, just take it, so I don't have to think about it.